Hello and welcome. I am your host of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? Author Karen E. Osborne. I have five novels out. The latest is Justice for Emerson. I am so glad that you're here. This is a space for readers and writers to come together and talk about books. So I get to welcome back the wonderful, extravagant Debbie Wastling. Hey, Debbie.
Hello, Karen. Thank you so much for having me back.
Oh, I am delighted. We always have such fun. So I'm really glad to have you back because you make me laugh.
Okay,
It,
well, maybe
I
it's the
think it's
British
the theater,
accent.
right? I think it's the theater in you. It's the actor in you, right?
Well, I was a
So
director for many years, and my story was we just got to get the show on, and the same with books. We've got to get the stories out for your readers and for your listeners who really like a good novel, and that's how I treat it the same. Just get the stories to the people, and they can choose what they read.
exactly. And so today, good people out there, you're going to hear Debbie is a wonderful historical fiction writer, and it's based on family history, and she finds such intriguing characters. So today we're going to talk about Martha, but let's set the stage first, Debbie. So tell us a little bit about why you chose this, your Bell family series, how that came about. Give us a little background.
Yeah, it came about. The first book was The Flying Scotsman's Things, set during the just after the First World War and the Second. My grandfather drove the train for 46 years. And anybody who drives trains for 46 years of their life, to me, needs writing about. It started the year that the Flying Scotsman was 100 years old in England. And I was able to go on the train and did a lot of research and just thought, my family needs this book. It's wonderful that lots of other people have read it, but I wanted to put it down in history. But of course, I didn't just write one book. I wrote the follow-up book because you can't have a book with, you know, 80,000 words in it. So I had to chop into two books, and that became the soundtrack of their lives when he had children with the opera singer who sang for the king. So that was two books. And then while I was writing that, a gentleman from Newcastle, a Geordie from Newcastle in the north of England, found me on the internet. And he said, we're related. And then people started finding me. So I warn all readers, if you put things out on the internet, people may find you if you don't want to be found. And we did a lot of research. I flew over to Newcastle in England, the north of England, even further north than Yorkshire. I'm from Yorkshire. And this wonderful gentleman called Alan said, we were doing research together, and he said, well, actually, I think they just live next door to each other. And this became the book, The Irish Secrets and Lies, my great great grandmother. And it was just like they'd been best friends. And he thought because they lived at almost the same address, they must be related. It didn't matter because Alan and I were great Anglophiles about historical stuff. He showed me all the original stuff in libraries there. It's not even you have to go into anywhere special. The libraries are keeping all the history, addresses, all sorts of things that historians love. So it's based on accurate truth, places. And she ran the biggest pub with her husband in Newcastle. Most of our generation down still know the pub is there. It was called the Barley Mow during their time. And it's been known for over 150 years as the pub to go to on the time. So, of course,
Wow.
Newcastle people knew the story. It's selling very well in both countries. The Americans here must like my boozy stories about illegitimate children. Um, she was an Irish gal who was brought into the country when she was 11 and sent to work, as you did in those days.
Mhm.
Victorian poor families sent their kids to work. Her brother worked in the mines. He was he pulled the carts, a younger brother at 8, 9. And so it's not all happy families, so I have to tell you, but I like to write about working class people. And that's where the story comes from. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
she gave
So
birth to 9 children, as you did in those days.
yes, you did, and the people lost so many children. A lot of times they gave birth to more children than lived. So
Precisely.
tell our audience what year the Secrets and Lies, the Irish Secrets and Lies.
Well, she was born 1860, came over when she was 11. So in the 1870s, she was in this beautiful market town called Hexham. People who've been to the north, in fact, if you've watched Vera, you've seen Hexham. Vera, the television program by Anne
Mhm.
Cleeves, the writer, they filmed there because Newcastle is so big. It's like London. It's hard to film in. So they often take a lot of their filming to Hexham. And that was her town. And she was sent to be a cook, and then she cooked in a pub. And that's how she met the brewer that became her husband. He was selling his beer around the 19 pubs in Hexham in the Victorian time. So we know those Irish miners and those English miners were drinking an awful lot of beer. It's researching all that is one of the amazing things, that the pubs, a lot of the pubs are actually still there as well. I was able to go into Victorian pubs that are still being run daily as a lifestyle for the British people, selling fabulous food. So I did a research of the pubs, I did the research, and then she wanted to go to the big city, like everybody wants to go to New York
Mhm.
or to London or to Mumbai. She wanted to go to Newcastle because she felt she would make more money there, which was true because obviously there were more, it was a city, it was a growing city of industrialization. And she was very smart because she realized single men from Scotland and Ireland who didn't have their families with them needed a good meal to work the 12-hour days they were expected. So the pub
Mhm.
was right near the industrialized River Tyne, and the people from the glassworks and different industries would come in and eat her food. And that is how the Sutherlands started their lives. That's my
Wow,
story.
wow. So tell me a little bit more about Martha from a character point of view. What kind of person is she? What were her, not so much just what she did, but what were some of the things about her that you really admire, that you really love?
Yeah, well, besides having 9 children, which is, these days,
Pretty
I mean, some
Herculean.
people still have them. She lost a couple. I think she was a dreamer. I think that's possibly why
Mm,
her she started in a bakery quite young and was taught by an older couple who taught her everything. But I think she was a dreamer and she had bigger dreams than a small market town. And actually, I think if she gave me anything, she gave me that because I always, even when I was directing Sondheim, I believed I could do it. And Sondheim, any musical, even when I was directing Shakespeare that I didn't always understand, I believed I could do the show. So I believe she gave me that. And she brought up a daughter who became quite musical, my great grandmother, and she actually is in the next book. But I believe she taught her children to think big and to think bigger. And that was very indicative of Victorian England. At that time, it was the time New York was expanding. And people
yes.
were thinking bigger than if you were born working class, you didn't have to stay working class. If you could get something business, it was happening in America too, right? Um, so it's very exciting to read about that time because how do you decide if you're a writer listening what you put in and what you don't? That's always my big problem. Growing up, not much schooling, but obviously she learned to use her fingers and also be sensible enough to bake what people were going to eat and learn to cook it. Um, and she had quite a few holdups. Her father was a drunk, so she didn't get anything from that. Her mother once Her children were older, laid in bed all day, not well, um, and died young. So she didn't have a big start, but she was determined to get to Newcastle, which she did. And when they were taking over the Sutherland pub, they never knew if they were going to get it. So she knew she may have to move again. Luckily, they got the pub. I'm not giving away the story because the pub is very as important as my characters, to be honest.
Ah, so the
So
pub
it,
is almost a character in
it's a character in the pub, and it
the
has
book. I love
ups
that.
and downs.
So
And
when you were doing your research,
mhm.
and I know you do so much, so I need you just to pick one or two things. But was there something that really surprised you or shocked you or you found really funny or just intriguing?
Well, the funny thing is in the second book, The Sutherland Scandals, her illegitimate son, who nobody knew about because she sent him back to Hexham to live with her sister, he was a troubled chap as a boy, probably had something like HAD or something. He was ever, and he ended up gambling as a teenager and getting into trouble. But when he took the pub over in the second book, he had boxing dwarves in the pub that he gambled, and people brought vast amounts of money to him. So he didn't have an easy life. And I don't think it's easy being with a child who you can't always help. I mean, I'm sure there are listeners who, feel for that. And that's one of the stories I had to put in. It's not necessarily comfortable, but I think the way she dealt with it, she made sure her sister gave him a good outdoor life and he was able to grow things and take care of the animals. And also, her sister never married. So she was left with a small building in Hexham, which became a farm. So there
Wow.
was some good, there's all these layers when you look into history. It's like who took
Hmm.
over the farm, who had the name on the farm. And I was able to look at all those things. And then some things I couldn't put in, otherwise the book would have been 25 hours to read. You have to snip things out. And
You
I
do, and it's
enjoy.
hard to decide what to leave in and what to
Well, I
leave
mean,
out.
I'm gonna, her daughter was in the next book, The Sutherland Scandals, and that is actually her as a suffragist. And I have trouble going, well, how did she must have been a very go-ahead woman to give birth to women, young women who became suffragists and knew that life could change and they could get the vote. And it always
Yes.
fascinates me. America got the vote before we did, but we were doing it a lot longer in England, the suffragist history. It's been very popular. Both of those books are kind of equal. And because when I saw readers this weekend, well, wait, if I can only get one book, which would you get? It depends on what history you like. If you like the working class pub history and want to know about that, or whether you're, and it's surprising, there's so many women who still want to read about suffragists, which is great
Yes. Yes.
because
That is
it's,
really great
still a
and so
struggle,
important.
right? The struggle in this country is to get a leader who is female. You haven't
There's
had it
still,
yet.
there's still so many things that 100 years later, 100 plus years later, we're still struggling with. So
Yeah, and
I,
that's what I like to write about because I think young women, and a lot of my readers are young readers in their 20s and 30s who are actually telling me, I'm listening to your voice online because I voice my own books. That is such a thrill for me. And they're reading about the suffragists. And I do a lot about Newcastle and the women. There were two uh, movers and shakers, I call them. Flora MacDonald, who people have heard about, she became a baroness. She was a Scottish woman who was a trailblazer, but she loved going to Newcastle because the women were so strong. And then somebody less known I put in the book because I loved reading about her. She's had a play written about her, Florence Henderson. And she became the first person to say women could not go back to work as soon as they'd given birth. And
mm, mm,
employers employers had to give a week. Can you imagine after a week going back?
Just a week. Yeah.
But
Oh my gosh.
she fought for a month, she got a week, and then it slowly changed. But she was the first one that said, you can't do this. They're in factories, stood all day. You've got to
Yeah.
give women longer to be with their baby so that we don't
Wow.
have an infant. So I write about her. She was a friend of my great grandmother, and she was very influential in her life because grandmother painted the suffragist banners. You know, the banners they used to walk with?
Yeah.
She was the painter and the printer of all their stuff. So
Mm.
she found a
Oh my
life.
goodness, what a rich history you have, Debbie.
Who
Such
knew?
an amazing and rich history. And to
I mean,
know,
seriously, if my parents had known, I'm sure they would have told me. They're my aunts, but nobody. The war came along, First World War, and I think a lot got ironed out. And then the Second World War came along, and a lot more got ironed out. So it's sort of how do you find your history, and how do you? I mean, I love doing historical research. Maybe in my next life, I can be a history professor, but.
that sounds good. Have you read something recently, Debbie, that you can recommend to
Yes.
our audience?
It was on one of my. I'm on several sites, and this came up. Adelaide. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's about a painter in Scotland. I'm sorry, not Scotland, in France. So if we have any listeners who are really into historical art, and it's by my friend Janelle Strube, Strube, and it's her first book. I was amazed. It took her
Hmm.
11 years to write because of all the historical background, but it's beautifully written. I love France. I have two friends who I went to school with who live there, and basically, I love French painting. So it did everything, touched my heart. Great historical research, and a lead character that is as wild as my lead characters, women character. So much so that I wrote to her. She lives in San Diego, and I said, we need to get together. We've since become great friends just through a book, Adelaide, the
Wow.
painter of the revolution. And she lived before my time of history, 1700s, and Robespierre tried to damage all her paintings. There's a story. I won't tell you what happens, otherwise, the book. But if you love painting and love strong female characters, Adelaide is the book. I couldn't put it down, and I can't say that. I mean, I read tons of books because I'm a writer, but when it's that special book, I can't wait for her next book. I hope it's not 11 years before she writes the next.
Yes,
It won't be because
it won't be. Once you
we're going
get,
to go around libraries and
yes.
dressed. I will be dressed as a suffragist, and she will be dressed as Adelaide, and we're going to do a dual library tour where we will be
This
bringing
is
the
in California. This will be in
yeah.
California.
If anybody else wants us, if we can get enough libraries, we'll come worldwide because we love our women, and we love to tell because I think it'll excite people who don't like history, but to know about the characters and
I
know
think
about
so
what
too.
they
I
did.
think
I,
you're right. I think you're onto something really awesome. Awesome. Well, let us tell everybody where they can find your book. So first of all, where they can find you. First of all, you all know that you can go to Amazon, you can go to Barnes and Noble, you can go to your local independent bookstore, you can go to your library. And if you don't see Debbie's book, and hold up the cover again of the newest one, The Secrets and Lies. Look at
I
that.
give a
Hold it up a
book
little
to
higher.
every library. I
Look
give
at
a
that.
free set of books to every library I speak in because I want people to have access. And they also can listen to it in every library because I'm on Borrow Box and all the library sites get their library listening
The
from
audiobooks.
so you can
Yes.
listen, you can have it on ebook, or you can have a good old this is the actual copy. There we go, with pages flipping.
Isn't that wonderful? So, and so you're going to buy her books, or you're going to borrow her books. You're going to write reviews because they're so important to us. We thank you in advance. But Debbie, tell them how they can find you online.
Well, it's my name, Debbie Wastling, author. If you jot it down now, I think it's in the corner when Karen puts this up. And You'll be able to find me. Just put author after my name. It's really easy. I have a website. It will be new by summer, hopefully. I'm putting all the new books up. And I'm also on social media. Under, if you're Instagram, it's author Debbie Wastling. If it's Facebook, it's Debbie Wastling author. So you can
Excellent.
find me on any of the big social media. I really love, I hear from readers every week when they've read them. And I love reading your
Mm,
reviews because that tells me I'm doing the right kind of writing that you enjoy. Everybody says, Karen, as you know, you said about my characters stand out. I think it's all the theatre I did. If you don't entertain people with characters, why are you in theatre, right? Or why are you in writing? Because
exactly, exactly. Well, this has been so fun. And you can also watch the first interview that I did with Debbie. You can just put her name in the search engine on my website, and her interview will pop up. And so you'll get to hear more about the books and the family, which I think you'll enjoy very, very much. And when you are in touch with Debbie, please let her know that you met her on What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? Thank you so much. Thank you, Debbie. Thank all of you for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye
thank
bye.
you, Karen. Bye.